Welcome to this session titled Save Time and Money with Azure Automation. During this session, we'll be exploring how to set up Azure and use Azure Automation to manage VMs and other resources in Azure. Azure Automation is a service within Azure that provides a means to execute PowerShell scripts. These scripts can be executed ad hoc or on a schedule. Azure Automation is best used when scheduling scripts to perform a task. These tasks could be setup, configuration, but also any general task that's able to be scripted and is repeatable. Oftentimes, we may have lab or dev test environments deployed to Azure. These environments don't need to be running when not in use. Starting and stopping VMs on a schedule is a great use case for Azure Automation. During this session, you will see how to set up and configure Azure Automation. We will talk about what makes up a runbook, how to work with different assets and modules. We'll also explore how to automate the setup of runbooks, how to create a schedule, and how much all of this costs. By the end of this session, we will have created two runbooks, one that will start a VM at a specific time, and another that will stop a VM at a specific time. Getting started with Azure Automation is simple. Right now, the only way to create an automation account is from within the portal. Functionality to perform that task from the API, SDK, and PowerShell is on the roadmap, so we hope to see it soon. Once the automation account has been created in your subscription, it's time to start working with runbooks. Azure Automation provides a gallery with a growing number of runbooks. And these runbooks are just scripts that allow you to authenticate to your subscription, as well as create, configure, and manage different resources using PowerShell workflows. We'll talk more about workflows in the coming slides and demo. After you've chosen a runbook from the gallery and modified it to perform the task you need to complete, it's time to publish it. Publishing a runbook sets it active within your account. This just means that it's able to be executed. So now that the runbook is published, we need to decide how to execute that runbook. Runbooks can be started ad hoc from the portal or using PowerShell, and they can also be set up to run on a schedule. During this demo, we'll look at these different options and how to perform each of these steps. Not only can you use templates from the gallery in Automation, but you can also author your own scripts. Automation uses PowerShell workflows. PowerShell workflows are just a sequence of steps that perform long-running tasks across different resources. One of the strengths of workflows is its ability to recover from failures like network connectivity problems. But before we start writing workflows, they need permissions to access different resources in your subscription. For this, we use the Azure PowerShell module. This module requires you to authenticate to the Service Management API to perform the actions like starting and stopping VMs. To allow for this, we create a number of different global assets like credentials and connections in our automation account. The runbook can use these assets to supply the necessary credentials and connection information. PowerShell modules, either from third-party providers or ones that you've created yourself, can also be uploaded to your Azure Automation account as assets. Now, while authoring runbooks, you'll be working in what's known as the draft environment. This draft environment is in the portal. It allows you to make changes to the runbook and also test the execution of that runbook. Once you have the runbook working as planned, you can then publish the runbook. Publishing the runbook makes it available to be executed. The Azure PowerShell module ships with a number of commandlets that allows you to manage your automation account. These are typically run from your local machine instead of using the portal. Allows you to perform such actions as creating runbooks and executing them. When using these commandlets, you first start by getting your automation account using the Get Azure Automation Account commandlet. This commandlet lets your PowerShell session know which automation account to use when using other commandlets. So let's say you want to create a runbook and schedule it to execute. You would use the new Azure Automation runbook and the new Azure Automation schedule commandlets to complete these operations. Finally, the Publish Azure Automation Runbook commandlet is used to move the runbook from a draft state to a published state. There are other commandlets that works with Azure Automation. Please refer to the link on the slide for the information about these and the other commandlets. There are two types of pricing tiers for Azure Automation. The first tier is the free tier. It's limited to 500 minutes of job runtime at no cost. The second tier is the standard tier. Right now, this tier is free until November 30th, 2014. You get an unlimited amount of runtime. But after the 30th, every 10,000 minutes of job runtime will cost $20. Now, this cost is prorated based on the amount of job time used. For instance, if you use only 5,000 minutes, it would only cost $10. Alright, enough of all that. Let's dig in and actually start playing with Azure Automation. In this demo, we will set up our Azure Automation account and create a Hello World runbook from the gallery. This particular runbook doesn't require any assets. By the end of the demo, you'll have an automation account and we'll have reviewed some of the concepts we've already talked about. So the first thing you want to do is log into the management portal at https://manage.windowsazure.com, and we'll want to come into the automation section, as you see I have already selected, and create a new automation account. We do that by going down and clicking create. Here we want to go ahead and give it a name. I'm going to call this Save Time Money Demo, and I'm going to put it in the East US region. You'll notice this only takes a couple of seconds to create. It's very fast. So let's go ahead and enter into that account. You'll see it comes directly to the dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and click skip this the next time I visit and go to Runbooks. Under Runbooks, we see that there are none there, so we're going to go to New. You'll see Automation is selected, so I'm going to select Runbook from Gallery. This is the gallery that I was talking about that has an ever-growing number. I think when I first started using this, there was only about 30. Now you see there's 104 different runbooks that we can choose from. And we notice here under Featured, the first one there is called Hello World for Azure Automation. That's the one that I want to use. I'm going to go to Next. Here we can just review the definition of this. Go to Next. And here we can give the runbook a name. Notice the right Hello World. I'm going to go ahead and add IP, my initials, to the end of this. We see that it's creating it in the account that I had just set up, and then for my subscription as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click check to create that. We see that that's been created. I'm going to go ahead and click Edit Runbook. That'll bring me into the Edit, into the Author space for this particular runbook. We see the name is Right Hello World IP, as I'd specified, and I'm in that draft section that we talked about. Now in here, we can take a look and notice that the name of the workflow here is the same as what I named the runbook. This is important. If you try and change the workflow name here, it will throw an error when you try and test or publish it. Under here, we have one parameter, and it is called name, and it has a default parameter of world. And the only thing this does is just writes output called hello and then the name parameter. So I'm going to test this by clicking the test button here. Say yes to saving. And notice that that parameter, it asks us to specify that. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in my name, Ian, and click OK. And we see that it's starting the runbook. And in here we have a new output pane called, and it's in status queuing. Now it's status starting. And we'll let that run for just a second. It should move from a starting state to a running state and then a completed state. And once it moves to the completed state, we should see the output, and what we expect is for the output to say hello Ian. It's running. And it should move to completed pretty quickly, and our output is displayed, and we see hello Ian. Now that we have the runbook working as planned, we can go ahead and publish it. So I'll come down here and click the publish button. It's going to ask me, do you want to save? Yes. And we'll notice that once it's saved, the runbook moves from a draft state to a published state. Now we can work on scheduling this or just starting it ad hoc. That's it for the Hello World demo. We'll go ahead and move on to the second demo. Alright, for demo 2, in this demo we will create a runbook to start an existing VM using your subscription management certificate. We'll then schedule this runbook to run every day at 8 a.m. Alright, as a prereq, I've already created a management certificate using MakeCert. I uploaded it to my subscription under the management certificates section. So before we start looking at the runbook that starts this VM, let's create the assets it needs in our subscription so that we can authenticate to our subscription. So I've browsed back to our automation account, and we see the runbook that we just created. I'm going to go to Assets, and we'll notice that there is an asset already there. It's called Azure. It's a type module. This is the Azure PowerShell module. It's already been added by default to our automation account. So from here, we want two things to work with management certificates. First, we want the certificate. This is going to be the private certificate that our runbook will use to authenticate to the subscription. And again, the subscription already has the public version of that certificate. We also want a connection. This connection tells the runbook what subscription to access, and this connection consists of the subscription ID as well as the certificate we've created. So we want to start by adding the certificate first. So we'll come to Add Setting, and we notice that we have type connection, credential, a variable, or a schedule. So I'm going to create a credential. This credential is going to be of type certificate, and I am going to name it the same as I created the certificate name. I'll go to Next, and then I'm going to browse for my private key. It's going to ask me for my password. If it does not ask you for your password, it's because you're using the public key. And this will not work, so you want to make sure that you're using the private key. I'll go ahead and click Create, and that will pop up here in a second. I'm not going to wait for the portal to refresh. I'm going to go ahead and add a setting, and I'm going to add a connection. We only have one type of connection right now. It's to Azure, so I'm going to select that connection type. And I'm going to name this connection the same as my subscription name. Azure PFE-ENFill. It's asking for the certificate name. This is the name that I just uploaded. I'm going to call it Adminian Azure. And then the subscription ID. And you can get that from the management section of the portal. I've already pulled that out. So I'm going to put this in right here. Click OK. And I've created two things. I've created my certificate, and I've created the connection to my subscription. Now that we have those two assets, the runbook that we're going to take a look at will work. The runbook I've called Start Enfill MS. That's the name of my virtual machine that I already have created in my subscription. And let's take a look at this real quick. I have a parameter. It's called the Azure connection name. Just have it there. You could not use a parameter if you wanted to. You could make more parameters, one for the machine name, stuff like that. But I'm trying to keep this simple, so we'll have a single parameter called Azure connection name. And then we start working with commandlets that are specific to Azure Automation. This first one is get automation connection. It goes out and gets the connection using the connection name that I passed in. Checks to make sure it's not null. And then we go and get the certificate that's used in that connection using the get automation certificate commandlet and the property off of the Azure connection that we just created up here. Once we have the connection information as well as the certificate, and then we set up the Azure subscription, specifying the subscription name. This is why I used the same subscription name for the connection name, so that I could make this a variable. And then we specify the subscription ID that I put into that connection and the certificate that we just got up here. We select that Azure subscription to make it active that we just added. And then I simply call Start Azure VM and the service name, my cloud service, and then the name of the VM itself. Pretty simple. So let's go ahead and add this runbook into our automation account and get it scheduled to run. So back over here, I'm going to go back to my automation account, to the runbooks, and this time instead of going to new, I'm just going to simply select import, and I'm going to browse for that. Notice it's the start PS1 file. Go ahead and click OK, and that will upload that runbook. It doesn't pop up right away. I can go ahead and just search for that again and select the runbook that I just uploaded. I'm going to go ahead and skip this dashboard so it goes right to the dashboard, and I'm going to go into author, and we notice that author, I'm in the draft mode. Down here I'm going to just make one simple edit. I'm going to go ahead and add verbose. My screen is not working with me here. Let's go ahead and save it and see if that refreshes my draft mode. Okay. Well, draft mode is not working with me today. That's okay. We don't need to add the verbose. That just has gives a better output while I'm testing. So instead, I'll just go ahead and select publish. I know this works because I've tested it multiple times. So I'm going to go ahead and go to publish and select yes. And we've published this runbook that we just uploaded, and we see it is now in a published state. Now we want to go ahead and schedule this to run. Scheduling is pretty easy. We'll come over to Schedule and click Link to a new schedule. I'm going to call this schedule 8 a.m. startup. Simple. I'm going to do this daily, and this is on 24-hour time, so I'm going to say 0800 hours, and I'm going to schedule this to start tomorrow. Recurs every day. Go next, and it's asking for the parameter that I want to pass in. Remember, this parameter was for the connection name. The connection name I created was Azure PFE-enfill, and I'll go ahead and say OK. And that created the schedule. We see that schedule is there now, and it will run tomorrow at 8 a.m. It will start up that virtual machine. And that's it for Demo 2. Alright, in Demo 3, we're going to create a runbook to stop an existing VM but this time, instead of using a certificate, we're going to use an organizational account. We're also going to schedule the runbook to execute every day at 8 p.m. So just like before, we started with creating our assets. This time, instead of creating a certificate and connection, we're just going to create a PowerShell credential. We'll then use this credential in combination with add Azure account to download all of our subscription information and access it from the runbook. So let's start. Here I'm back in the Save Time Money Demo automation account, and I'm going to go to Assets, and we'll see the assets that we've already previously created. This time I'm just going to select Add Setting, and I'm going to add a credential, but this time instead of selecting certificate, I'm going to select Windows PowerShell credential. I'm going to give this a name of Adminian Azure Creds. Next, I'm going to specify my organizational account username. And my password. They match, so I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So that's it for using an organizational credential. Just create the credential. So we'll come back over to Runbooks, and here we'll select Import. And what we're going to do is we're going to import the Shutdown enfill ms ps1. Notice my workflow name is the same. But here I'm using a few different parameters, and I'm just doing this to show you what it looks like to use multiple parameters. The first one here, I'm passing in the subscription name. Second one, I'm passing in the organizational ID credential that I just created, which was Adminian Azure Creds. The service name and the VM name. The service name is the cloud service that we have. And you'll see this code is a lot simpler. We grab Add Azure Account, and we specify a credential parameter and the parameter name of that we're passing in as a parameter to the runbook. Once we've added the Azure account using the credential, we select that subscription using the subscription name that I'm passing in, and then we call stop Azure VM, and using the service name and the VM name, and I'm specifying to stay provisioned so I don't lose any of my public IP address DNS information. So let's go back to the portal, go ahead and import that file. We see it shows up. So I'll come into that runbook that I just created. We notice that it's in a draft state. nip this draft state. I'm going to go ahead and click Publish. We know it works, so I'm not going to test it. And I've now published that runbook. I'm going to come over to Schedule and link to a new schedule. I'm going to call this 8 PM Shutdown. Do this daily just like before. Start this tomorrow. And again, it is 24-hour time, so we're going to say 2000 hours. Reoccurs every 1 day. To next. And here we need to specify all of the parameter information like before. And the credential name was adminian Azure creds. Subscription name is my Azure PFE Ian Phil. The service name is Ian Phil, and the VM name is Ian Phil-MS. I'll go ahead and click OK to create that schedule. And now we have 2 runbooks created in our account. One will start at 8 a.m. The other will stop that VM at 8 p.m. So effectively, we've scheduled startup and shutdown of our virtual machine. We could do that at any time on different schedules. And right now, as it sits, it's running for 12 hours a day, so that should cut my costs in half. So I hope everyone has gotten a lot from this Azure Automation talk. I hope you see that it can be a lot more powerful than just starting up and shutting down virtual machines. You can use this to schedule any task in the cloud so that you don't have to schedule tasks on your local machine. If you're running a laptop, you know that that's not always on when we're traveling and things of that nature. So go ahead and ship it up to the cloud, schedule it to run, and happy coding.